Welcome back to the Hermetic Podcast. We have Hadron on again. He's become our first regular guest. Hopefully, soon we're going to have Frauder D back on. And in April, there's at least one or two Thelemites that have claimed that they're going to come on. One of them is a very skilled practitioner of a lot of different Eastern traditions, so that could prove quite interesting in my opinion. But in this episode, we're going to do a bit of a deep dive into Hadron's backstory, talk about some of his early experiences with the paranormal, maybe even some secret societies if he has any experience with those, and some of his successes and failures within his practice, and also maybe how he might have claimed to influence current and past events. So, would you like to get started?
Well, hi. I guess I'll start from the beginning. I was born, overseas in Istanbul, Turkey, and I had an American mother and a Turkish father. My father descends from a line of wizards from his father and so forth. I guess it was just the males, but he got skipped in teaching his magic traits. We're born magicians, right? So what it is the father teaches the son the basics. And what I understand is every single generation is like a unique fingerprint. Not everyone has the same powers. So I've never been told where our origin comes from, but my mother promised my grandfather that at 18 I'd be told that I come from a line of wizards. She popped on me one time when I turned 18. And she says alchemist as well. Well, I found out that my grandfather had the ability for precognition, telling the future, and levitation of things around the room, that he would go off and be by himself. If he ever got upset or wanted to release steam, he could make things fly around the room just by his will. And I asked my mother, have you witnessed this? She says, oh, yes. I peeked in the door, and it did fear the whole family on that side. So now, apparently, and I asked her, are you sure? Absolutely sure. Not yanking my chain, okay? So, because I don't have time for fiction unless there's some hidden codes in it. But I'm all about the reality, because fiction just wastes your time and my time. All right, so now I don't know anything about my great-grandfather or that, but I have suspected that we do descend from a line of jinn that has crossed over into humanity. How that happens and if jinn ever incarnates, well, that's another episode, but I do think that jinn are spirits, just like we are, and they can incarnate just like you could. So that's what I think we are. All right, when you incarnate, you have limited flesh and so forth, but when you're on the astral plane, well, there's different kinds of spirits, but everyone's pretty much a plasma being in a spirit, but it specializes in jinn. Well, anyway, my father, he was never trained in any arts, but he was considered darker. He was known to make a man go blind, and the may you not be born, may your children not be born and live, and that's what happened. My mother checked that source, because you don't just go up and talk to someone's wife in Turkey or the Middle East. You just can't just go up and casually talk. You have to get permission from the husband. So my grandfather knew he was kind of a dark one and never trained him in anything. So it's more like a mutant ability. I like to say that I'm a natural magician, not a trained magician. You don't go to Harry Potter school or join a secret society. It is genetically inherited, and it's unique. You don't train for it unless the father thinks I want to be trained or something. Well, since my father wasn't trained, I was never trained. But I did notice that when I inherited my traits, my mother suspected, she was always worried of me jumping from high heights. So as a teenager, I used to jump for like 2, 3 stories high. No problem. It didn't matter if I landed on my ass or landed like a cat or whatever. I had the ability to land, and she believed I could channel this energy through my body. And so I used to show off my neighborhoods of how high I can jump. In my high school, I was known as Spider-Man. I climbed the gym beams and just like literally hang out the beams and just drop. and literally smack my feet onto the floor and leave chalk imprints. That should have just cracked my bones, but it didn't. I've been known to frog jump, where I could channel my strength into my legs and literally leap like a frog across the grass. I used to do that as a teenager. Even with kids on my back, I could sit there and leapfrog for at least a good, 75, almost 100 yards. And so I was able to channel physical raw magic into my bones and strength. And then I later on found out emotionally I can link myself to the weather. Me and my cousin would start wrestling. We noticed that the bubbling of the clouds were turning red and bubbling upside down towards us. And I don't know if it's because his and my energy combined. I'm not sure of his background. He hasn't really explored much, but I do think that the energy's there. So I later on, in years later, I learned how to harness the weather. I was able to, I kind of cheat a little bit. I had a radionic device and I honed in my energy. It's called the Biosonde. I hear it is made by the Montauk boys, one of the Montauk boys afterwards, and it has the ability to supposedly produce like 432 megahertz or whatever, and it vibrates in the ether. Well, I trained myself to use it. It's called the God Machine, and it can pretty much do anything. So I trained myself to use it to learn how to do the weather. Now I can do the weather without it. I learned how to, like, back
Okay.
around, yeah.
Okay. So that is that's quite interesting. However, um, I'm trying to figure out exactly where you are in your life at this point. So we went from you being 18 and your mother telling you that you descended from a line of wizards and that you had a genetic trait that enabled you to more easily tap into whatever magic you could. So at what age are you now when you're learning this weather manipulation stuff, if I may ask?
Well, I knew how to master the weather back in 1998 when, like turning around 30. And
So
I think it's either,
the obvious question for the audience especially, to what degree do you claim to have the ability to control the weather? Just out of curiosity.
well, I learned how to control. Well, let me go explain it because when I learned how to control the weather, I learned how to build a cloud out of nothing into a lightning cloud. But I was able to make it rain in pretty much all the states in the United States. Save Hawaii and Alaska. I made it rain across the United States, nationwide, in America, at the same time. And then where I got my Biosonde machine from, he even noticed, I see you've been at work. I said, yeah. Now, if I really put my will to it, I don't need the machine, but the machine does help direct. It helps anybody, really. But being a wizard, without even trying to be a wizard, but naturally born as one, I was able to do great things with it. And normally this would be classified, but like, remember when the Gulf Gulf War uh, 2 happened? Uh, Desert Storm, Gulf War 2. So around 2003 invasion. I tried to stop that. I was under the impression that the the extended masters were real, the extraterrestrials, the whole field of the New Age, where um, everybody up there in the higher extraterrestrial tram, all the good guys, that they would stop the war when no one showed up. So I was the only one there, and so I decided to put excuse me. All right, I decided to put my will, and I did it. I raised I raised a sandstorm so mighty that even the Iraqi newspapers thought that Allah was doing it. Okay, so I'm using my jinn power, and I was able to slow down the military for several weeks. But this takes on and off will. This is will that takes a long time. Well, they didn't care if they had damaged tanks, helicopters, whatever. They were going to hold out, and I'd have to literally throw that will around the clock for months and years. And so, we can't do that. So anyway, they finally made it in, and this is what I considered a failure. That's one of my failures when I at first was succeeding. So anyway, I didn't really use my magic months. I did learn how to do a little telekinesis, but it was a little manual that kind of how to do it, like making small things spin. But it was like you can probably do it, and I think the average person had the ability that I did. So I didn't do anything impressive. I didn't make anything fly around the room, but I can make things spin. Like for instance, a piece of paper on a needle, stick the needle through a styrofoam, put the styrofoam, like a nice little platform styrofoam, in a bowl of water, and you'd be surprised how much you can make that spin. It's a piece of paper folded into like a pyramid that spins on the tip of the needle, and the average person listening could probably make that spin. Well, my cousin and I learned how to do it from even 3 feet away and 4 feet away, and we were battling back and forth. I also got an eagly wheel. It's made out of it's made a guy named Eagly. Well, anyway, you can make this alloy aluminum twist, back and forth with your aura, circulating your aura around your hands. Your aura, when it circulates around you like a river, that is one secret to telekinesis. So I've never really, I like to
Oh,
do telekinesis, but I never had the passion.
that does make some sense. I've had some success with that sort of thing as well. I think even some skeptical people have had some success with the psi wheel, which is sounds like what you're doing. Um, so that was a lot of information on some of your early practices and whatnot. How old were you around this time exactly? I'm just curious because I'm trying to establish a bit of a timeline here so that we can flesh
Well,
out your background before, because this is the last episode before we really just start going into a free form podcast type of
yeah,
thing, because we really just want the audience to know who you are, right?
right. Someone jumped back and forth. It's not a perfect sequence
So
because you need
where
timeline.
are we at right about now, like in this in your general life time?
Well, okay. Well, the thing is, um, I don't know. I mean, to spend this. I mean, I was still a teenager experimenting. So
Oh, okay.
when it was Gulf War Two, okay, or Gulf War Two, that's when I learned that I can project it overseas. I'm not limited by American limitations. So I can cause earthquakes around the world. I can cause any lightning around the world. Um, but the thing is, to me, it's not about ego. It's more like I just want to
So
test it.
I have an obvious question. What is your success rate with causing this phenomenon, and how quickly do you normally do it? Because that would be an interesting thing to think about before we go on to the next subject. Because I know a lot of
It
people are
varies.
going to wonder, obviously, and of course, a lot of people are going to be skeptical, which is fine. So
It
let's
varies.
give some vague, at least some vague idea of what you're capable of.
Yeah, it varies on about cause and effect. So I noticed the first time I could cause an earthquake when I was in the Navy back. I don't want to give too much details because I'd hate to have someone, oh, the Navy gets alarmed, so they take it seriously. So that's why it's probably not best to give too exact details, but because it takes away the significance of the highlights, in my opinion. So the thing is, but I can say in the early '90s, I was able to crack my naval base in half, and they had to
Uh,
close it down. And I didn't realize at the time. I was just telling the guy, "Hey, I'm focusing on waves. I'm just aiming into the earth."
So
And I
so do you think that this was more accidental or deliberate?
both.
Okay. So when you're deliberately trying without emotional stimulus, does it still work, or do you have variable success rates?
It depends on how bad I want to do it. I was just practicing just to see if I could do it, and I did it. It
Okay.
happened 2 weeks after I left the base,
Okay.
so I didn't realize it um, until quite a while later, and I found out, oh yeah, man, that this base had cracked in half. We had to close it down and everything, and it happened 2 weeks after I got discharged. And I've been aiming for like about 4 or 5 times over a period of a couple of weeks. Just kept
Mm.
aiming my will into the earth, and it did it.
Fair enough. I can accept that. A lot of practitioners do have occasional extreme events that are outliers. So that's not too absurd, but You know, it's up to whoever's listening to decide. Okay, so that's interesting. So we're probably about in your 20s or whatever at this point, maybe even 30s.
Yeah.
You were talking about something that happened next, right? Or did this happen way after? You were talking about a so-called vampire society that approached you. Can you tell me more about that?
Well,
And
I'd like
is
to.
oh, sorry.
Yeah, I'd like to lead up how that happened.
Oh,
Okay.
okay. That sounds good.
Okay. So remember about that hyperdimensional resonator time travel
Hmm.
device that made by Stephen Gibbs that's rumored that he's now deceased? Well, when I ordered my first one, I didn't really take care of it well. But anyway, when I had my first one, I ordered from a organization by Thor Templar. You've encountered him, and he
Oh
had
yeah,
like,
he's a interesting fellow. I don't really have the
yeah.
highest opinion of him, if I'm honest. But
Well,
go ahead.
regardless of the personality struggles, he had a lot to teach if if you approach him calmly. And he used to have a magazine with three branches, and his little new age devices and all that. I learned a lot about Oregon and alternate devices through him. I have to give him some credit. And you have to kind of be careful what regardless of him, we won't take his personality and take it to the big picture. But I learned a lot of things, and then so he distributes different products from different manufacturers, which is really a great thing. Well, that's when I learned about the hyperdimensional resonator. Well, I had a roommate at the time, and him and his girlfriend were at my house, and I worked every other weekend. Well, after I used my hyperdimensional resonator to try to experimental time travel, you can actually travel to the location you want to go, and you will re-experience a time. If you're inside a vortex, you can literally physically travel, but it is risky. You could end up really gone and no plug to get back with a device. So, but anyway, that's another story. But anyway, when I experimented with it, I think it produced a lot of vibes where he
He
said
said
later
later.
two large um, orbs came to the apartment and were
Oh
looking through
yes,
my
yes,
bedroom.
yes. I think we talked about this on the last chat, didn't we?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
okay, okay.
So just to go with the flow here, they went shuffling through my papers. I was like, "What was it? Do you know?" I said, "I don't know." And then he later thought that a poltergeist attacked and started a vacuum. It was another day. I'm like, "Okay, you've had too much to drink. Are you sure?" Didn't know what to make of it. But anyway, but when I started playing with a hyperdimensional resonator and the radionics, it started to trigger attention, I think, in the ether when I analyzed it back. Well, this is when I started to experience grays entering my house, my apartment. I had four grays. Now, the thing is, I look at it years later, and I can interpret it in more than one way. They seemed like blobs that would just came out of the wall and started materializing more and more into the to the egghead kind of versions. Okay, so they got in my face. My head started like buzzing, and I can even hear out the wall. Something in my head is buzzing, and the noise is bouncing out the wall. All
So,
right,
so you mentioned that this was after you used the hyperdimensional resonator.
right.
So, were you in any kind of meditative state?
No, well, here's what it is. This is back in the 1995.
Okay.
Okay, and then what I'm doing is I'm doing this, and I break off the communion because I was like, I don't know if I want to see where it takes me. I don't know whether I want to risk it. It felt real, so I shook it out of it. All right, so I tried to learn about that process of who and what they are. I interpret more as spirits, the grays as spirits, not necessarily extraterrestrials cloaking. Back then, you'd want to interpret as extraterrestrials, but later on, a year later, I had another roommate situation, another location, and I said, "Hey, do you see that? We're in the backyard. There's a high wire, real high wire power lines. Do you see that?" And he said, "No." One of my friends.
Mm.
I said, "It's a gray. It's just ripped open space. It looked right at me and smiled." And I'm like, "You don't see that?" He says, "No." I said, "It's a gray. It's again. The grays are starting to make contact."
So,
Okay, this
don't
is
want to veer
96.
us too off topic, but what is your opinion on a few of the people that were on the Coast to Coast radio show saying that Greys are just future versions of us? Because I'm interested in your take on other people's opinions about the Greys. So even though it's not really a focus of mine, it is something I'm interested in.
I I think the time travel theory is not the absolute truth. That's a layer of truth. I actually think, see, I'd like to devote a show to that.
Oh,
I actually
absolutely.
think that the gray that tried to contact me was my higher self. My personal opinion is that spirits can contact you and pose as your mythology that you're researching. They will appear as your mythology. Whatever you believe, a spirit will take that form. That's what I believe has happened. Now, I try to think, could my higher self make the same manifestation? Yeah. In fact, I think the second time my higher self was looking at me, it was a gray. And I have determined that a gray is really a higher self. It is a spirit, either independent or is your higher self. Now, what
Okay.
makes a gray a gray?
So just to
Go ahead.
back this up a bit, since you said that you think that this was probably your higher self communicating with you in a way you could understand, do you think it was more of an internal experience as opposed to external, or do you think it was a bit of a mix?
Is a bit of a mix. You can exchange in and out as you wish because when you're starting to make the connection, internal and external are the same thing. It's like a holographic conscious experience, and somebody else may not see it, but you can see it clear as day. So see, when I explain this, I'd like to use up our time as swiftly as possible.
Hmm.
We're going to dot around, but
Oh, it's all
I
right.
got
If necessary, we could even do a part two on it. It's not the biggest deal.
yeah. So let me continue here as I continue the track of thought. So, so what it is I at the time I didn't think it was my higher self, but what causes this gray to happen? Because I want to explain definitions as we go. What I think the gray really is, people are going to discover sooner or later it's going to be your higher self. It's just a matter of time. This is my opinion. There are no grays from outer space. I don't think they're time traveling. I do think a mythos can be created where if you believe the gray you're encountering is time traveling, it will become so. Your beliefs are so powerful that the ether is reprogrammed to become our beliefs. It goes for the theory of evolution, creationism, whatever you want. Mankind is addicted to worshiping his beliefs. You'll find that man has a unique signature. We're all magicians, we just don't know it. Mankind has a unique signature to rewrite the past and rewrite the future, constantly based on his torsion fields he develops when he believes. And so this is what I think is happening is that the future and the past are not absolute. That's the reason why historians can't even agree upon the past. We can't even agree upon the events of the present, regardless of propaganda or whatever. I still think
Well,
one event can happen and three people can have three different interpretations sometimes.
I personally believe, based on what I've seen, because you know me, I am actually a bit of a scholar, even though I didn't go ahead and finish my PhD. I do believe that there is actually a relatively coherent narrative in academic history. I just think that it's not necessarily set in stone because I do believe that causation is not linear. I just don't think that there's necessarily a deliberate
Well,
obfuscation of the timeline. I know that you believe stuff maybe like the Fomenko interpretation, but I'm just presenting my opinion on it. I think that there is a
well,
lot of agreement, but it can change.
well,
That's
that could
my
be,
whole opinion.
in your opinion. I think we can make another video if you still want me to explain my life here. But you asked a question that opens up a can of worms that
Oh
I'm
yeah.
able to strike. So let me continue here. So if you want to talk about, we talked about there's different timelines. Whatever you subscribe to is what becomes your past. If you okay, so I'll get back to my history, but here's what I'm saying. Okay, academics only became serious in the last 200 and 300 years, and academics was more European based. Well, there was multiple theories of history. It was never precise. Different areas of the world had different beliefs. So we can use that as another time to explore how academics is more of an invention of the last 300 years, and they made a choice while obliterating all other versions because the royalty and the Vatican has an interest because you have to explain your past if you still want to rule over your people, whether it's real or not. You have to have a past. Wait, and we'll talk about that on another episode. But let me get back to my, my thing about the grays. You'll have people that say they've been abducted. I think the higher self will take you into different initiations. So, as we know, any true magician knows that it's all based on the higher self. That's where your magician is. Your higher self is the magician. You and your physical containment is very limited on what the magic can do. It's a vessel. Your spirit is a true magician. Okay, and we can use an episode of based on exploring more what the spirit and all this stuff. But I just want to let you know what I thought my encounter was after analyzing all these years. All right, so when we go stick more, okay, so this is where we're now starting to see that we're having involvement in secret society. So after that, I think this is now a new evolution. My higher self and my belief system is taking on the journey. I am starting to create reality. So when a secret society approaches you, this is no ordinary thing. This is not just Freemasons. This is not just Illuminati. This is a senior order that plays supposedly events throughout history. And it was vampiric in nature. Now the thing is, these two girls that approached me, they left an ad over on a New Age store. I answered it. I thought I'd be telling them a thing or two. Well, they turned around and no, they're telling me. They asked me to drink a potion. They said, you can't learn unless you drink this potion. It was gross. But anyway, I drank it, and a whole new world opened up to me. All of a sudden, I started having dreams that are repetitious, and it was so-called a castle where they all dwell. And it's in Pennsylvania. And what's weird is on 9/11, that's the exact place where that plane hit, which I don't think there was a plane at all. I think it's more to it than that. But anyway, that's another episode. Well, anyway, I could astral travel to this castle. You can't go visit physically, they said. It's if you walk to it, you can't see it. It's camouflage. Don't know how. Don't know if that's force fields, whatever. It could be a multi-dimensional place. Well, anyway, I was able to repeatedly do this, and I could not believe it. This is the first time in life where I can literally will my place to go, and I can literally meet those girls on this plane. If it's an astral plane or a physical place, I don't know, but that's where the other vampires were. But they still had an intertwined mythos of extended masters. Uh, they said all kinds of things. In fact, it was so outlandish. If I repeat it, you'd think I was a crackpot. So I'll keep some of it to myself because it's outlandish. And I was like, surely this can't be true. Well, but yet things were happening. I was initiated, then I saw things in the sky, almost like a council meeting from the clouds high up in the sky, and that was them. I'm like, what? And I'm like, I couldn't believe my eyes. And that was after I did the drink. They said, now you need to go way outside. I said, that was them. That was them greeting you. So I didn't know what I was dealing with for a whole year. But I broke free because there's more militant. Secret societies become more militant. They control how you think, how you act, what you do. They were starting to, you had to leave your home and come and meet them because you're in training to join. And once you join, you don't get out. But I kind of felt like I was going to die. They admitted there's a ritual where I had to die for 30 minutes and come back to life. And that's what triggered the vampire gene inside me. And I was never into vampires at this time, but they said that I had a vampire gene and I was killed in a past lifetime and that they're trying to gather them back. And they told me how the war is fought and who the other side was. I choose not to get into that because it gets pretty weird and pretty intense. And it's not important. I don't feel as important to the general view, at least not at this time. But anyway, what it is I just knew. It's like, yes, I felt like I was going to die, but how do I know they're going to wake me back up? And then I'm going to find that secret societies lie to you. They give you disinformation while you're joining them. I don't know why. I suspected this is a form of mind control. How well you question, they test your instincts when you know you're being fooled. They want to see,
All
but
right.
then at the same
Just
time,
for the
they,
just for the
you know,
sake of just for the sake of the audience, I know we're talking about a lot of different things that came up during your journey, and I know that you don't necessarily need to be 100% precise about what was going on, but can we try to make this a little bit sequential? Like, how did you meet them, and Why
I,
did and when did you leave? Kind of what between there and then and there, just kind of sequential if possible.
remember I answered an ad at a New Age store. That's how I met him.
Yes, yes, yes.
All
Okay.
right.
So
So
and then
I
we
would hit
got
a series of meetings at
and
least
then
like once a weekend or
and
every
then
other
we got
weekend.
to a bunch of revelations, right? So exactly why did you start thinking that they were controlling your life? I mean, like what did they do? Like that I think that would be
Well, they
extremely
tell you.
interesting.
They tell you when to show up, even if you don't feel like showing up. They make you study things. They'll give you quizzes, see if you're listening, and then supposedly a mystery call on the phone. It's supposed to be the head of their order, and then can I talk to them? Nope. And so you're treated as a peon, and you have to believe these legends and stories about their families. So they give you a whole mythos that you're drenched in, but you're living on the outside. And then they'll say, "Oh, they were just here," or "Hey, they're not far away," or "They just arrived in town." And I'm like, "Okay, so if they just arrived in town, why aren't they meeting me?" "Oh, you'll get enough of them." So it's just these virtual otherworldly people that seem to be on the verge of meeting me. But what's weird is after a year, I just didn't know what to think. It's like, is this a prank or is this real? Well, when I broke off, I started to think that things were real because the things they predicted came true. Like my mother became deceased, they predicted at a table, and then the other one said, "No, not yet." They said, "We're waiting for her to die before you come forth." And how would they know that? They don't even know her. They said, "We know where she's located," so they knew her. And it's like, how could two girls at a prank know where she's located and know she's about to die soon without even meeting her? And second of all, they kept talking about this other guy that used to be with our society, which I don't want to name. And they
Mm,
said he left and he stole a lot of magic secrets. And he's using it for evil. Well, they said, "Have you met him?" And I said, "No." Well, what's weird is I did meet him and I didn't even know it. And guess what? He was trying to recruit me, which was the next sequence. So after I broke off from them, because it's like, I'm just getting confused. I don't know what to think. I don't know what's real, and they're getting more controlling. And just when you think they're lying, you want to catch them. And just when you think they're lying, they're telling the truth. Like for example, one of the girls said that she was a daughter of Elvis. I was like, yeah, right, BS. I asked her mother, and yes. So she was in her 20s. They're in their 20s. I was like in my late 20s. And then Yit's mother says, yes, that's one of the daughters of Elvis. Elvis has many children across the United States, and who knows overseas. I'm like, so I thought this girl was yanking my chain. And so here's an exaggerated claim that I verified. Yes, it's true. She's an illegitimate daughter of Elvis. Another one, she says, I almost joined the CIA, but I decided not to. I was like, oh, come on. And I had to ask someone, yes, she was there getting ready to join the Marines, but her ASA was so high that a CIA officer was quickly sent in because of how high she scored.
mm.
And I'm like, okay, what are the odds of that? It's like I never heard of smart people all of a sudden the CIA wants to talk to you. But then I kind of wondered, did she join the CIA and is she on a mission?
So you
And
said that you verified this to their mother. Do you have any reason to doubt what she might have said? Just curious.
no, she was working. I think she's a nurse. She worked all kinds of odd hours, and she had no reason to lie because I even used her to ask questions on telling the truth. That someone that was supposed to visit the house wasn't there. So
Mm,
that's how I discovered that some things are true, some things are not. But then what I learned is they even said, the girls even admitted, we have to mix in truth and lies to you,
mm,
test your instincts, and also test, you have to acknowledge, it's pretty much saying, even
mm.
if we lie to you, you need to trust us anyway.
On a bit
So
of a
they,
humorous side, it does sound a little bit like Scientology.
yeah. So what it is it's a testing faith thing that you're not supposed to over question things. Yeah, Scientology is not a secret society. They're crackpots. Okay,
Oh
this is
yes.
this yeah. So this is about initiation, about trust. It's you don't go in with a practical, straightforward mind. Secret societies will actually protect themselves by giving you disinformation, and they even admitted they will. They said, you know, they said we will give you disinformation, but you will be dropped with a lot of truth. And they said this is very privileged. So But after a while, after about a year, it's like, man, I can't go through this because they said, well, normally the average person takes 6 months to come in. You're taking longer. And I'm like, why is that? And they wouldn't tell me. They said, just your psychology. So I don't know if I is because I wouldn't just go with the flow or whatever. So
Mhm.
when I went part two with the other guy, this is when I found that everything was true. I found that the lady that I knew that was a friend of this guy, they said, "Don't tell those girls where I am." I was approached the same one in college, where there's a society of witches. Well, then in other words, I found out that this group was a society of witches, advanced witches, and advanced, long-lived vampires. All right, so the witches were supposedly able to produce lightning. They said that the vampires and the witches would have duels. The vampires are very fast, pretty much super soldiers. The
So
vampires weren't ancient super
just to
soldiers.
keep this um, precise, have you ever actually seen this, or were these just claims that these people who were trying to
Just
induct you
claims.
in? Okay, okay.
Yeah. All right. Now they said that their vampires could live thousands of years old, and the witches could even live longer. And the witches go through a leukemia phase when they start to learn how to harness lightning out of their hands. They
Mm.
go through a leukemia sickness. I was like, very odd. Well, anyway, moving on. After I got away from them, and if anyone's ever interested, we'll go more into them. But I'm not there to expose this group. But I hear that they're pretty much top notch. I mean, they run the episodes behind the scenes. Um, this stuff that gets into Saint Germain stuff, extended master stuff, and just weird things. It's a rabbit hole. It's a twilight zone, and you see things and experience things you can't explain when you're with these people. Okay, there are just weird things that happen, that synchronicities that happen that are just out of this world. Well, anyway, when I got away from them, the other secret society came. All right, this is an evolution after the extraterrestrial so-called grays, which are not extraterrestrials in my opinion. But this is me manifesting. See, the thing is, are these secret societies coming to get me, or are these manifestations that I was producing, wanting to create meaning out of my life and something that I was
I
more
think
creating than receiving,
I
but I
honestly
didn't know
think
that.
I honestly think that's probably a pretty simple explanation. As you get interested in these ideas and you develop power, assuming it's true, as I don't want to take one side or the other, no matter what my opinion is like at this time. You develop a resonance and you attract certain groups and you actively seek them out, and that synchronicity there just makes it easier for you to find each other. That's my whole hypothesis. I don't think there has to be a grand unifying theory behind it or anything, but that's just my thoughts.
Well, we talked about this off our show
Oh, of
here.
course, of course, of course.
So what I think is, so I look at it for years, and I think it's my manifestation. It's not that they were the truth or not the truth. They were manifestations of what I needed to develop. So it's not that these secret societies don't even hide in the same reality as you. This is not just some third dimensional phase that you can join, like a typical low level Illuminati, where George Bush is in. This is much more than that. This is multi-dimensional reality that I was able to verify.
Now, I did
So
promise my viewers a while back that I wasn't going to try to make this too much of a conspiracy show unless we can back up claims. So I do understand the idea that people have that Bush is in the Illuminati, but
yeah,
but if we're gonna say stuff like that, we're gonna have to eventually do a show where we actually kind of try to back that up a bit, because I don't
right.
want to be another Alex Jones. I'm not trying to derail you. I'm just trying to say that
No. So
I'm just trying to keep this to, like, we
yeah,
can talk about conspiracies, but I want this to be a esoteric show more with some
right,
conspiracy.
right.
Yeah.
So the thing is, if you want me to talk about my life, this stuff has to come up.
Okay.
Okay. So, all right. So you got to go with the flow of this, or we're not. We're probably going to run out of time before I explain everything.
Oh,
So here's
we can always do a part two right after. No problem.
right.
That's no
So let
problem
me
at
just
all.
write it out. I wouldn't overanalyze it too much. So let's just write it out, and I'll show you what I mean. So I'm manifesting reality here. Okay. This is what the emphasis is. and I'm making a difference between normal secret society and what I'm manifesting. Okay, it is not that these secret societies are real or not real. They exist in a different reality altogether. Okay, the girls even said they live this life and then they live another life. They never explained. It's not like they go in the closet and live at some secret castle that you can just walk up to in the third dimensional plane. It's not like that. This is more multi-dimensional, higher up ascension process. And this is the reason why I still stick to vampires can actually ascend, are part of an ascension process. It's not something that we are used to. When most people think of ascension, they think of lighter things and brighter things and all that. And what I've experienced is it just doesn't seem to reflect that. Light and dark can both play ascension roles. All right. Now here's what I'm thinking. So after I leave that, where I'm never quite initiated all the way, I signed signatures. There's going to be a marriage to this one gal I saw a photograph, and I was like, I don't know, man. I just can't picture myself being fully controlled, and they're going to tell me what to do, and I'm just going to be a peon, and I'm going to live to be a long time. And they said it takes like about 300 years for your, vampire genetics to kick in, where you're full blown vampire on the level. And I was high ranking. They talk about past lifetimes and they catch up with you. I never knew what to think of that. It's not like I deny it or 100% confirm it, but I just play with it over the years. Okay, but I like to believe in it. But it's more than third dimensional thinking. It's a process out of normal linear thinking. Well, when I go to this next one, there's this guy. Well, it's a super soldier program. Well, he talks about all kinds of things and all kinds of stuff happening to the world that they do. That you'll see things unfold on TV. Yeah, this is this person was in us. We're talking about famous people who are part of the secret society. I'm like, really? And then I'm grounded by this person who's actually said, are you sure he's telling the truth?
Okay.
Are you
Okay.
sure?
So
And she's forping down yes, and she has a credibility with her background. But go ahead.
so I'm gonna end this part right here just for the sake of recording length, and we're gonna start a part two right after. So I'm going to release this recording probably sometime this week or next. After I'm not doing much editing, but I try to keep a schedule. So let's end this right here and then pick it up in a few minutes with another recording. Does that sound good to you?
Okay.
Okay, so this has been the Hermetic Podcast. We have Hadron on. Please join us next week for part two. I wish all of you a wonderful day.